Hey Brandon,
What?
can I marry me a white girl?
If you want.
No, I'm asking this question because a lot of people think that they use the example of the Hebrews not being to marry outside the Hebrews in the Bible in the Old Testament as example of why we shouldn't marry outside our race. What do you think about that?
I think that they're missing the purpose of what Christ has talked about in his ministry, right? He's transformed it from the physical to the spiritual. That is our new standard. There's no Jew, Greek, Gentile, male, female in God's body. It's because it's our spiritual condition. And so when we're looking for marriage as a Christian today, our primary concern is it a Christian that I'm marrying? It doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't matter where they're from. If they're born again and made new in Christ, then they're in a position where we can join in as them with our significant other. Looking back to the Old Testament for the standard of how we should be living means that there's no foundation or a very weak foundation of the understanding of what the New Testament is talking about in Christ's ministry, because they're trying to bring in the physical and they're trying to bring in the old bondage from the Mosaic covenant into their standards of how they want to live today. And a lot of times they think that that's going to earn them special favor before God by doing that type of stuff, and God says no. That's just a distraction. That stuff doesn't really matter. The reason that was taking place back in the Old Testament was because of the lineage of the Hebrew tribes and what God was planning to do through them, and then as well the pagan influences of the nations that were, basically ruining their relationship with God. They would marry outside of the Hebrew line, and they would marry into the pagan cultures, and they would never affect the pagan cultures. The pagan cultures would affect them, and they would be led away from God. And so that was kind of the two-edged sword of why God said, don't do that, because it's going to ruin your relationship with me. So if people are stuck on that today, they're missing the point of what Christ's ministry was about, and they're focusing on the wrong things. And really, it's just, in my opinion, it's just a distraction.
Perfect example of why those laws were there is Samson, right? Because
Samson was a huge example. Solomon as well. You look at the effect that these people had on their lives. We try to think that we're the exception to the rule, where it's like, well, we'll marry outside of Christianity and we'll save them, right? That missionary dating and that missionary marriage. But it's going to affect you more than it's going to affect them, right? It's unwise to be approaching things with that kind of a perspective, because it's going to affect, over time, it'll affect your relationship, and you'll go backwards more likely than not. Then you'll actually do any progress trying to get them saved, right, as an example in that relationship.
Let me ask you this question. Is it bad to want to marry your own race? As long as they're Christian.
I mean, it's like, if I'm being 100% objective, I feel like there's some racist undertones that come when you take that kind of an idea to your life. When you're like, well, they need to be Christian, but I'm only going to keep it within my own bloodline. I feel like you're devaluing other races when you do that, and you may not be doing it consciously, but
purposely.
Yeah, you're maybe not doing it on purpose, but I do feel like when I hear that kind of a statement, it's like there is a little bit of a racist undertone, because you're implying that it would be a poor decision to marry outside of your race because of less value, or because they do something that you don't like or that you don't see fit, right? Does that make sense? So that's my 2 cents, is when you make statements or claims like that, you're segregating one race from another, and you're implying that there are differences and that your choice is better than the other choices, if that makes sense.
What if it's more of a culture thing, like, say I want to go home and eat beans and rice because that's what we were raised on?
Yeah.
Is that a problem? And there's no racism behind it?
No, and I don't. It's if you're proud of your heritage, if you want to keep that kind of a thing when you're going to garner you're raising your children, and that's something that's important to you, that's fine. But I think too many people try to hide behind that and really are just racist.
All right, just for the record, I'm not saying that because I know some people believe that about me and DM me and ask me.
Check your intentions. If that's on your checklist of what you're looking for in your spouse, maybe take that to God and say, help me to see if I really do have anything I need to take care of in here.
Like I said, that's not me.
Okay.
All right.